Hey, how y'all doing out there? We're back. Another installment. When I first started this channel, I was gonna keep the videos short and I wanted to, get views and all that. Now I'm like, I gotta be going along with I'm pushing against the paradigm. So I'm making my videos long and that's just what it's gonna be. So today we're gonna talk about COVID a bit. I'm not gonna talk about it. We're gonna play some videos. And we're going to talk about history and geography, you know and I think I got some good stuff for y'all. I hope y'all enjoy this stuff. Like I say, I want you to be an activist, and the whole point of this stuff is to motivate y'all, and educate you so y'all can know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna start with Crystal and Sager, because I know that a lot of y'all are freaking confused with the COVID and the vaccinations and everything. If you're confused, you're not alone. It's a lot of confusion going on.
Nobody really knows what to. Let's move on to how the media is covering themselves in glory, really. It's a scary time. Let's be honest, right? Delta variant, nobody really knows what to believe. Yeah. Many people got vaccinated. People are, wait, is it not working? You're seeing all these headlines. The media's job is to tell you what's going on. And some people, for reasons I won't understand, still really trust the media. And they look at them and the media is telling them, you should be really afraid. Now the CDC is bringing back its mask mandate. And I think there's a lot of problems with that, but still, it's the CDC. It's like when you see it in a movie, you're like, I'm supposed to trust it. And we are seeing a total and complete breakdown of reliable and good information coming from the CDC, coming from the media, so much so that we have a complete cluster. Let's throw this up by the media, because I thought they actually did a pretty good job here. NBC News, the New York Times, and the Washington Post all independently called out on the same day for horribly irresponsible framing of COVID cases in fully vaccinated people. And let's give you an example. Ken Delanian, who is a world star idiot over at NBC, CIA scribe, decided to start writing about COVID. So here's what it says. Exclusive. At least 125,000 fully vaccinated Americans tested positive for COVID. Oh my God, that's scary. 125,000 out of how many? 145 million? 150 million Americans? It's one of these things where when you think about it statistically, you're like, wait, that's actually nothing. Also, how many of those people got hospitalized and died? Oh, so you have a 99.999% chance of survival from any sort of breakthrough case if you're fully vaccinated, and you have a 99.996% chance of not being hospitalized. Oh, that sounds pretty good odds to me. These people are basically trying to scare someone for no reason. The same thing happened at the Washington Post, which is their headline was essentially the same thing. They said, quote, CDC shows 3/4 of people infected in Massachusetts COVID-19 outbreak were vaccinated. Now, once again, they point to vaccination rates and even the cases without talking about hospitalization and death. All those people in that Massachusetts story, none of them died. 4 of them were hospitalized out of hundreds.
And by the way, this was an area with very high vaccination rates. So guess what? If there's very high vaccination rates, then you're going to have a high percentage of vaccinated people who are the ones getting it. That doesn't mean the vaccine doesn't work. And it's all intentionally scaremongering.
It's pure fear-mongering.
For profit. Yeah. Fear-mongering for profit. And it is the best gift that they could ever give to anti-vaxxers.
That's the worst part. And I want to show you how bad things are. The White House is calling out the New York Times. So put this up there and keep it up for a little while. Ben Wakana, this guy is the strategic communications director for the White House COVID-19 task force, quote tweets the New York Times, for those who are listening. The New York Times says, the Delta variant is as contagious as chickenpox, may be spread by vaccinated people as easily as the unvaccinated. And Ben really points out in all caps, vaccinated people do not transmit the virus at the same rate as unvaccinated people. If you fail to include that context, you are doing it wrong. So things are so bad that the New York Times is exaggerating so much that the White House itself is saying, all right, everybody, hold on a second. Okay, that is the level of insanity that we've reached. And so I alluded to these figures, but let me underscore them. Please throw up Andrew Kaczynski's tweet. Less than 0.1% of vaccinated Americans have been infected with COVID-19. 0.004% have been hospitalized. 0.001% have died. So let that sink in. 99.6% chance, 99.996% chance not being hospitalized, 99.999% chance of not dying. The people who are dying, who've been vaccinated, mostly people severely immunocompromised, had a lot of problems going on. So, and most of them are elderly too. So already on the brink, comorbidities, everybody knows that side of the story. This is what bothers me the most. The media is essentially saying, and building up, trying to build the case for the mask mandate and all this by undermining the case for the vaccine itself.
Yep.
If you're unvaccinated, and I have a whole monologue on this about who are these people who are not vaccinated. I went and I dug into the data from the Kaiser Family Foundation. The number one reason for not getting the vaccine is it's too new and I'm going to wait and see. Now, if you're in the wait and see crowd and you're not hearing this responsible reporting around dying and infections, and you're seeing, oh, I can still get infected with COVID, and the media is not telling me that infection is not the same thing as hospitalization and death. Well, why the hell am I going to get this vaccine? I'll just get COVID and have the antibodies or whatever. And it's like, guys, they're blowing a massive hole in this, so much so that even the White House, who I think has gone way too far in embracing some of this public health guidance, even they are saying this is a total disaster. How the media has handled themselves this weekend.
Yeah, because their interest is in people feeling pretty good about the state of the country and that we're on the upswing. And that is the truth of the matter. And you're right to say, look, this is a scary moment. People are trying to figure out what's going on, what the risk is to themselves, going through this whole process again of reassessing, like, okay, where am I going to run? My kids are going to go and play. What's going to happen with school open? All this stuff. Like, I get that is very fraught and very tense. And this crap makes it all so much worse. To me, the most irresponsible one was the framing of this Massachusetts study and just putting out there without any of the surrounding context that more vaccinated people were getting COVID than unvaccinated. If you're just looking at that as just a headline, you're thinking, wait a second. So if I get vaccinated, I'm more likely to get coronavirus? That is the polar opposite of reality. And we know that is the case. I mean, we've had how many hundreds of millions, possibly billions of people worldwide who've gotten this vaccine now. We know the data around what happens. You are dramatically less likely to get COVID. If you do get COVID in these rare instances of breakthrough cases, you are even more dramatically less likely to be hospitalized, and the chance of death is as close to zero as it could possibly get. That's the story. The story is the vaccines work, and all of these people scaremongering for profit and clicks should be completely ashamed of themselves. And by the way, hey, Twitter, where's their, misinformation label? Where's their ban? Where's them being entered into the, dystopian social media database where they all coordinate to give you the internet death penalty? Where's all of that? They jumped to when there was like some bad Hunter Biden story before the election. But this stuff coming from sources that are considered so trusted is completely disgraceful. And it also really does show you the double standard, because if some, right-wing nut job on YouTube had put this out, they probably would have gotten it. Their video would have been 100%. Demonetized, taken down, possibly kicked off Twitter, all that stuff. But because it's the Washington Post, New York Times, NBC News, they're just like, well, it's not great, but
think about that Washington Post headline. Think about the Washington Post headline. Imagine some anti-vax guy on YouTube is like, you're more likely to get it if you get the vaccine than not. YouTube would look at that and be like, hey, this person is... It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's the exact same thing. It just so happens that these people are establishment. Also, I just want to say, by the White House's own standards, these people should be removed from all of social media, right? They've been spreading COVID-19 misinformation. They shouldn't be on Twitter, by all rights, by Twitter's own standards. Twitter should have taken that down, or at the very least labeled it misinformation, but they're not going to do it. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this was happening at a time of terrible ratings for the media. Frankly, Delta is the best goddamn thing that ever happened to them. They miss Trump so much.
Delta replaces
Trump. It just refuses to
For the mainstream media.
You know, they try on CNN, all of this. Delta is the best thing that could have happened because now they need to gin you up so you have a reason to watch again. Try.
I'm not gonna make no comments, y'all, because I ain't gonna lie, I'm scared, but I'm gonna let these people talk. So let's move on. You know, I want you guys to put all this in perspective.
This morning, encouraging signs out of the UK. New coronavirus cases there are plunging after the country experienced a spike because of the Delta variant. CNN's Phil Black live in London with much more on this. Phil, the big question is how? Why?
Yeah, indeed. And last week, when England threw away the pandemic rulebook and declared so-called Freedom Day, the expectation was things were going to get much worse. The scientific modelling showed the existing surge was only going to get bigger and stronger. But since then, this extraordinary thing has happened. Cases have fallen rapidly, and no one really knows why. In the first week of England's hands-off, mostly unrestricted policy of living with the coronavirus, something extraordinary has happened. The UK's growing wave of cases has suddenly, unexpectedly fallen away. The drop has been quick and dramatic. Compared to the previous week, the total number of confirmed cases is down 36%. Scientists admit no one saw this coming.
It's not something that I expected or predicted.
I think it's a surprise to a lot of people to see something that's come down this quickly, this much in synchrony.
So they only have theories on why this is happening. The end of the European Soccer Championships means no more big emotional crowds. A recent stretch of good weather encouraged people to stay outside. Schools are out for summer, closing what some scientists believe is a significant environment for transmission. Awareness of surging cases.
School's not even in.
More cautious behavior, and there's also the possibility vast numbers of people are still being infected. They're just not following up with tests because they don't want to cancel plans and stay at home.
So the issue is what we're seeing in terms of a reduction in cases a true reflection of the community levels of infection?
Scientists feel confident on one point. Vaccines are helping, but it's too soon to attribute the drop to herd immunity.
We need to remember only 55% of our population are fully vaccinated. The rest are either partially vaccinated or not vaccinated at all.
The delay between infection and symptomatic illness means the figures don't yet reflect the consequences of England throwing away its pandemic rules on July 19th.
It is very, very important that we don't allow ourselves to run away with premature conclusions about this.
But the sudden changes are fueling hope. The UK will not experience the grim, difficult summer many predicted. So is this real? Is this a blip? Is it a new sustained trend? Scientists say they will be studying hospital admissions figures in the coming weeks, because if it...
Again, I'm not gonna make no comment. I'm gonna let y'all just use your own brain on that. I got some more related to that. Let's go. Because the thing is, you guys, what y'all don't realize, there's a lot going on in the world, bro. Like, in the way y'all react here in the United States is not like how everybody reacts everywhere else. So that's why y'all need to, that's why I'm doing this. So let's go.
The World Health Organization is warning of a new wave of COVID infections and deaths. This follows weekend protests in France, Italy, and Australia against new restrictions. Here's CBS's Elizabeth Palmer.
Riot police faced off against French protesters this weekend who are angry about rules that make vaccine passports compulsory to enter many public places. But most people have accepted the idea. At the Eiffel Tower, everybody in the line has to show a proof of vaccination barcode or certificate or take an on-site COVID test in order to enjoy the views from this famous landmark, which has just reopened after 9 months. In Athens, too, there were demonstrations after the Greek government made vaccinations mandatory for health workers. It's also insisting ferry passengers traveling to the Greek islands show proof of immunity to protect its vital tourism industry. Over on the other side of the world on Saturday, police in Sydney ducked flower pots hurled by protesters, furious about a new lockdown. Australia had kept COVID at bay by closing its borders, but the virus sneaked in anyway, and infections are now on the rise. And here in England, young clubbers celebrated not only the end of lockdowns, but all COVID restrictions, partying in crowded venues on so-called Freedom Day at the start of the week. The number of people testing positive for coronavirus in Britain is back up again, over 30,000 every day. But thanks to good vaccine coverage, the number of deaths, so far anyway, has remained low. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, London.
Yeah, so basically they're protesting. I'm gonna show some more of that. Give me a second, y'all.
In defiance of public health orders.
This is Cuba.
Protesters clashed with police during anti-lockdown demonstrations in Sydney, Australia on Sunday.
My bad.
Thousands of people, mostly maskless, gathered in defiance of public health orders amidst a growing COVID-19 outbreak. The protest turned violent fairly quickly as demonstrators threw potted plants, paint, and water bottles at police officers and media, while others physically assaulted police horses. New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott announced the formation of a strike force to identify and charge those involved.
What we saw today were 3,500 very selfish bullheads. People that thought that the law didn't apply to them. There is no doubt in my mind that at least one individual there today had COVID. It is statistically impossible for us not to consider that.
You just speculated, bro.
New South Wales, Australia's most populous state and home to the country's most populous city, Sydney, has been 4 weeks into a lockdown to contain an outbreak of the virulent Delta variant of the coronavirus.
We want freedom!
At least 57 people were arrested at Sydney's protest, with many more expected to come. Whilst in the neighbouring state, Victoria, local media reported at least half a dozen were arrested in Melbourne.
Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to say with these videos at the moment is that, you know, people ain't feeling a lot of that stuff, the vax passport and stuff like that. Give me a second, y'all. Even Berlin.
In an attempt to break up the demonstrations, they've also detained. Police here in the German capital, Berlin, have come up against anti-lockdown protesters. Hundreds of people took part in marches in the city despite a court order banning such gatherings. Police in riot gear used pepper spray and physical force in an attempt to break up the demonstrations. They've also detained a number of people. The protests against coronavirus lockdowns in Germany have attracted a mix of groups, including anti-vaccination activists, conspiracy theorists, and the far right. DW's Thomas Sparrow is at the Brandenburg Gate in the heart of Berlin, where the original protest was due to end. Thomas, what's the situation there on the ground?
Well, the situation here is very diverse. It has been tense throughout the day, but unlike previous protests of this type, there hasn't been one centralized protest here. We've been across different districts of Berlin, and you have seen pockets of protests there that the police have tried to disband. But in general, there hasn't been that one very big protest that maybe the organizers had expected right here at the heart of Berlin. I spoke earlier with police spokespeople who said that over 2,000 police officers were on duty, and that their main matter of concern, their main goal today was precisely to try and disband those protests or the groups of people who were actually coming here, despite the fact that these protests had been banned in advance out of coronavirus infections, and also because police consider that many of the people who normally take part in these protests do not respect some of those coronavirus restrictions, like wearing masks or observing social distance.
And what exactly are these people unhappy about?
This is a very, very diverse group of people. One of their main issues is...
Okay, I'm gonna move on. We're gonna move on to other protests, but this is not for the coronavirus necessarily.
Cubans have been angered by, let's move on now, because the Cuban authorities have taken a hard line after the biggest anti-government demonstrations in 30 years. After thousands took to the streets in the capital Havana and other cities across the country, police used pepper spray and beat some of the protesters. The crowds are unhappy with food shortages, high prices, and the authorities' handling of the COVID pandemic. Well, Cubans have been angered by the collapse of the economy. Last year, Cuba's state-controlled economy shrank by 11%. Now, that's its worst decline in almost 3 decades. It's been pretty hard hit by the pandemic, too. And, of course, those US sanctions imposed by the Trump administration. More than 200 new sanctions were imposed on the island's economy during Trump's tenure. And the Biden administration, well, they haven't lifted any of them. Protesters are also angry at a shortage of vaccines. The country reports a record of nearly 7,000 daily infections and 47 deaths on Sunday alone. That's twice as many as the previous week. Tanya Dendrinos sent this report.
Chanting for freedom. Not a cry often heard in Havana. Cubans took to the streets in what the opposition has called the biggest anti-government protests in almost 3 decades.
Y'all hear that? What the fuck? I don't have time right now. I knew that was gonna happen. Damn it. Sorry, y'all. Got a phone call. That's why I say I'm gonna get another phone. Because that shit just killed my whole fucking... Damn.
Else, and they have us starving.
Demonstrations were also held in Florida, where the Cuban exile community showed its solidarity. Cuba's president has blamed the United States for the unrest, laying down a threat for anti-government protesters.
We came here to show, together with the revolutionaries of this time, that here the street belongs to the revolutionaries. No worm or mercenary will claim the streets, and if they provoke us, without violating their constitutional rights, we will confront them.
Words spurring on supporters of the communist government, some taking it upon themselves to surround and detain those demonstrating, while others staged counter-protests.
We are defending what we did 60 years ago, that this is ours.
This is Cuba, y'all.
That capitalism will never come back here again, and that these mercenaries, paid by the empire, will never again take our streets. They will have to kill us all first.
Demonstrations of this kind are rare in Cuba, but as the country reports a record number of coronavirus infections, tensions are boiling over, and cries for democracy are growing. Tanya Dendrinos, BBC News.
I'm joined now by Anna Maria Aurora from
so like
Anna Maria.
Cuba, bro. Cuba. Here in the United States, everybody like acting like things are just fucking fine, bro. Like Cuba is acting the ass, bro. Like that never happens, bro. Cuba never freaking, they never like, this is not a normal thing, bro. Y'all need to look that up. What's going on in Cuba? That's the reason why I put this up, is because like I say, I want you guys to know more about what's happening in the world. Y'all bring up stuff about Cuba and then you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, bro. Like this shit matters. Cuba is right off the coast of Florida. Y'all know that, right? Get the fuck out of here, man. That's again where geography is important. I'm gonna talk about some geography. But hold on, I got some more protests. Hold on. Let me find this. Give me 1 second. I got distracted by a phone call. Sydney, Australia. Did we talk about that? We can do a little bit of that just to give myself a second to get my shit together.
Protesters clashed with police during anti-lockdown demonstrations in Sydney, Australia on Saturday. Thousands of people, mostly maskless, gathered in defiance of public health orders amidst a growing COVID-19 outbreak. The protest turned violent fairly quickly as demonstrators threw potted plants, paint, and water bottles at police officers and media, while others physically assaulted police horses. New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott announced the formation of a strike force to identify and charge those involved.
What we saw today were 3,500 very selfish bullheads. People that thought that the law didn't apply to them. There is no doubt in my mind that at least one individual there today had COVID.
Oh, yeah.
It's statistically impossible for us not to consider that.
Speculation, bro. Speculation. How you just gonna say somebody in the crowd had COVID? How you gonna say that, bro? You don't know. Fuck. Shit drive me crazy, y'all. Let's do a little bit more on Cuba
at Johns
because y'all don't know about Cuba. So let's talk about Cuba a little bit more because nobody knows.
Welcome to Pushback. I'm Aaron Mate. Joining me is Piero Iglesias. He is a professor at Johns Hopkins University, author of Conflicting Missions, Havana, Washington, and Africa, and Visions of Freedom, Havana, Washington, Pretoria, and the Struggle for Southern Africa. Professor Iglesias, welcome to Pushback.
Thank you.
I want to have you on because you are considered a leading authority on Cuba's foreign policy. And I think it's an overlooked part of the story right now when it comes to the ongoing U.S. blockade of Cuba. Cuba's going through a very difficult period right now, very tough conditions under COVID and with major scarcity on essentials, including food. And instead of easing the blockade, as he had promised to do, Joe Biden is continuing the Trump policy of maintaining the blockade and imposing murderous sanctions. And in discussions of this,
Bet y'all didn't know that.
in discussions of what the U.S. motives are, the fact that there's a huge right-wing exile Cuban community in Florida is a major factor. Also, the long-standing U.S. desire to crush socialism in Cuba and prevent any sort of alternative model in the world to U.S. state capitalism is also a very big factor. But I wanted to ask you about Cuba's foreign policy, which I think is overlooked in the discussion as a cause of the U.S. animus towards Cuba. So before we get into that background, let me just ask you your comments right now on what Cuba is going through and Biden's response, which is basically to try to increase the suffering.
Well, Cuba is going through an economic and a political crisis. I haven't been in Cuba since 2015, so I don't have the intimate knowledge of the situation in Cuba that I would have had 6 or 7 years ago. The economic situation is very difficult. The new government does not have the prestige, the charisma of Fidel Castro or Raúl Castro. And so it's a difficult situation. And there is a political and economic crisis in the country. The US sanctions have absolutely no justification. They were imposed to punish Cuba for its foreign policy during the Cold War.
Yep.
For clashes between Cuba and the United States, in which the United States, most of the time, was the guilty party. And Africa is an excellent example for that. So in a way, they are two separate things. On one side, there is a very difficult political, economic situation in Cuba. On the other side, there are vindictive sanctions of a country that was often defeated by Fidel Castro's Cuba in foreign policy.
The Cold War is over. Castro is dead. Why are they giving Cuba such a hard time now?
Fair play is not a quality of Anglo-Saxons.
All right, so talk to me about why the Anglo-Saxons in Washington are vindictive. Where should we start? Because, Cuba's...
He said the Anglo-Saxons.
Cuba started, the Cuban Revolution started humiliating the United States.
See, yep.
In the late 1950s, early 1960s. Our
couldn't make them into a colony.
American practice was to use force and overthrow any regime that represented a challenge in their sphere, in the backyard rather.
They wanted to turn them
in
into
Central America, the Caribbean, and we were used
Puerto
to
Rico or
dominate the
something.
region. And here we have a government that stood up to the United States and was able to survive. And you have the American aggression of the Bay of Pigs, and it was defeated by humiliation for the Kennedy administration.
I gotta know your history.
And then you have the clash between Cuba and the United States in Latin America and in Africa. But I would say that the very survival of the Cuban Revolution was an offense and an insult for the United States, particularly in the 1960s. And then
Hard to understand this guy, huh?
continued. Then in the early 1970s, we were willing to quote unquote forgive Cuba and accept the existence of this regime in Cuba. Kissinger started moving towards establishing a modus vivendi with Cuba. And what do we have? The arrival of the Cuban troops in Angola in 1975. They defeated a major covert operation conducted by the United States and the apartheid regime of South Africa. It was a humiliation for the United States.
To say the least.
But in real terms, what you had in 1975 in Angola was an axis of evil, Pretoria, Washington, and they were defeated by the Cubans. And you can.
I'm gonna wrap that because it's hard to understand him. I was watching some of this video, but maybe I could find something better. But you know, it's about Cuba, you know, and it's about like, I mean, y'all don't know. It's so much y'all don't know. It's because they don't want y'all to know, bro. Like, if y'all just look up Cuba, man.
Across the continent. Here is your latest.
We're gonna move to Africa.
Africa. Biden administration launches initiative to build U.S.-Africa trade. The administration of Vice President Joe Biden has kicked off the Prosper Africa Build Together initiative by requesting $80 million from Congress to build trade and investment between the United States and Africa. Dana Banks, U.S. Senior Director.
Man, I'm all over the place today. What is that? I'm gonna get better with this, y'all. I have to get better with this.
Somalia. Somalia's Jubaland state to elect senators.
Hold on.
Here is your latest African news. Africa. Biden administration launches initiative to build U.S.-Africa trade. The administration of the U.S. President Joe Biden has kicked off the Prosper Africa Build Together initiative by requesting $80 million from Congress to build trade and investment between the United States and Africa. Dana Banks, U.S. Senior Director for Africa at the National Security Council, said Wednesday in an online news briefing that the U.S. was ready to do business with the continent of Africa. However, some critics say that the trade and investment plan could undermine the current African Continental Free Trade Area, which was established in 2019. That agreement promotes the free movement of goods and people across the continent. Somalia. Somalia's Jubaland state to elect senators on Thursday.
Wait, let's put a pin in that. So the African Union has their own trade thing they got going on, and then the United States is like, hey, let's help you out with that, and so y'all can have trade with us, and it'll make y'all more money. Da. You know, but you already know their whole point is to control it. They don't want nobody else. Our companies need to be making money, not your African companies.
This Jubaland state will finally vote for senators on Thursday, a process which will kickstart the twice-delayed electoral season in the country. The decision came after Jubaland leader Ahmed Madobe finally issued a list of candidates. Jubaland is the first of Somalia's 5 states to vote in a month-long Senate election. Elections in Puntland, Galmudug, Coachella, and Southwest, as well as special delegates vote for senators representing Somaliland, will be conducted during this particular time. South Africa. SA appalled by AU's decision to give Israel observer status. The South African government says it is appalled at the unjust and unwarranted decision of the African Union Commission, AUC, to grant Israel observer status in the African Union. According to a statement by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, DIRCO, on Wednesday, they said that the African Union Commission has taken the decision unilaterally, without consultations with its members. The decision to grant Israel observer status is even more shocking in a year in which the oppressed people of Palestine were hounded by destructive bombardments and continued illegal settlements of their land. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation statement read on Wednesday. The department believes that the unjust actions committed by Israel towards the Palestinians offend the letter and spirit of the Charter of the African Union. Kenya. Local residents want British Army trainings stopped after a fire. The Loldega community in Laikipia County wants the British military stopped from conducting trainings at Loldega Hills, terming continued exercises as contemptuous to the community living next to the 49,000-acre ranch. Through their lawyer, Kel Kubai, the residents told the Environment and Lands Court in Nyeri on Wednesday that despite the UK military allegedly causing a fire 4 months ago, trainings are still undergoing. During a virtual session held yesterday, Justice Angima heard that the military's actions were contemptuous to the community. This was after Justice Angima issued orders on June the 4th, asking 6 residents joined in the suit to invite the rest of the community forward. In this petition that's now new, the community alleges that the respondents have admitted their culpability in causing the fire, and as a result, toxic and poisonous fumes produced by the fire have been absorbed into the atmosphere and will be emitted to the environment through the rains. Zimbabwe. Government halts Chinese mining activities in game reserve. Government departments implicated in granting Chinese firm Afroshin a controversial special mining grant inside Mavuradona Game Park were on Monday summoned for a crisis meeting in which they traded blame, leading to government suspending the company's operations. According to sources who attended the crisis meeting that sought to address public outcries arising from Afroshin's irresponsible mining activities inside the wildlife reserve, which is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it was unanimously agreed that the Chinese company should immediately fold operations. Tanzania. Samia Suluhu Hassan kicks off Tanzania's COVID vaccination with the first jab. Tanzania's new president launched a coronavirus vaccination drive on Wednesday, in one of the last countries in the world to start inoculating its people. The mass vaccine rollout started with Hassan, 61 years old, getting her jab after a ceremony broadcast live on television in the financial capital, Dar es Salaam. Tanzania will give priority to special groups of frontline workers, the elderly, and those with underlying diseases. It received just over 1 million single-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccines from COVAX, the global initiative that seeks to provide equitable access to doses for lower-income countries. U.S. Ambassador Donald Wright, whose country donated the J&J vaccines via COVAX, said on Twitter that the development was a historic moment that hopefully marks the turning of the tide against the COVID-19 pandemic in Tanzania. Plans are also underway to procure doses from the Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, and Chinese vaccine makers Sinovac and Sinopharm, the government has confirmed. Thanks for watching. Visit our YouTube channel, Tuna Cheki, to watch our weekly news reports and our website at Tuna Cheki.
That's good. That's good stuff, man. You know, hey, I don't know if y'all made this far in this video, but a little bit of African news. I'm going to wrap this video up, and then I'm going to start another one because I got to do something right quick. And then after that, we're going to move on to Africa. So the next video is going to be about Africa. We're going to talk about some of these. I like the honest ads video, so I might do some of that. There's a guy talk about Vietnam. I might do some of that. What else? Oh, yeah, we're going to definitely do some geography now. I mentioned that in the other one, and I don't know if you guys know about it. I don't even know if I used some of it already before. I probably have, but it don't matter. This stuff is really good. We probably do some of Haiti and some of Jamaica. So y'all look for that. Peace.